Have you ever wanted to see Eggman without his glasses? Welcome back to How Many Tries, a content free time show where we look at 3D models in video games. Today we're taking a look at every single model for Dr. Eggman. So Eggman's very first 3D model was from Sonic the Fighters, released in 1996. Unfortunately, since those models haven't been ripped from the game, we're gonna just have to go with this little pre-recorded video here, but I think it gives us a pretty decent look at him. So they didn't model the entirety of him in Sonic the Fighters, they only modeled him from the stomach up. And just comparing it to his sprite from Sonic the Hedgehog 3, I think they did a really good job of adapting this to 3D. I mean, granted, it's not that complicated, he's just sort of a circle, but Eggman's all about the machines, and although he doesn't fly around in his little Eggmobile in Sonic the Fighters, I do think this robot that they have him in that game looks really cool. So here's our first proper look at a 3D model of Eggman from Sonic R, released in 1997, 1 year after Sonic the Fighters. This is a pretty big downgrade from Sonic the Fighters, but I think that's to be expected. That was a state-of-the-art high-tech arcade game. Sonic R was on the Sega Saturn. Not the most powerful of hardware. Robotnik's 3D model has 292 triangles. A really simple model, but I mean, it gets the point across. I do like how his face is just a completely flat 2D texture. Also, you can't see the triangles on his shirt in Sonic R. It just looks like one big yellow blob going down the front of him. So this model obviously isn't perfect, but for an old 3D racing game, I guess it gets the job done. Next we've got the Eggman from Sonic Adventure, released a year later in 1998. I can see why they gave him a major redesign. I think out of all the redesigns from the Sonic Adventure games, his was probably the most needed. And I also think he got the biggest glow up from Sonic R. He went from 292 tries to 1,136 tries. So his design's pretty complicated now, but I feel like it's not too bad. He's got a lot of like straps and belts on him and stuff, but they're not absolutely everywhere. There's still some planar areas on his clothing. He looks pretty cool and menacing with his eyes covered and these new set of goggles. I do think it's funny that he has two sets of glasses on his face at all times now, but that's okay. Overall, I really like Eggman's redesign. From the back, it looks really cool too. It looks like he's wearing some kind of conductor's outfit or something. Next is Sonic Shuffle, released in the year 2000. The model looks a little weird here because of some complicated Blender stuff I won't get super into. Everyone in Sonic Shuffle had a black outline, but to achieve that effect, they had to make like a second model on top of everyone's character model that was entirely in black. I chopped it up a little bit, but I just kind of wanted you guys to see how these models are made. He's even got a black outline baked into his mustache, since it's just a flat 2D plane, which is interesting because his mustache was fully modeled in Sonic Adventure. But I think this Sonic Shuffle model looks really good. I think he benefits from this more cartoony, kind of comic booky art style, and getting some more emotion on his face here with the eyebrows, I think that went a long way. Next is Sonic Adventure 2, easily one of my favorite of the Eggmen. You can finally see his chin. Overall, this model just looks a lot more polished. You can see his legs look a lot sleeker. He's not quite as blocky. His body's got a much more interesting shape to it rather than this like just straight up egg shape. But they didn't really need to bump up the polygon count a whole lot to achieve that. This model's only like 100 tries more, 1,262 tries. From the neck down, the model is not a whole lot different, but I think all of this new detail in his face really went a long way. It makes him much more expressive in game. Although interestingly, his mustache is still just a flat 2D plane. Sonic Adventure 2 Battle Eggman and Sonic Adventure DX Eggman are nearly identical to their original adventure counterparts. Like with this Adventure DX model, for example, the only thing really noteworthy is they gave him a few more polygons. You can see he went from about 1,100 tries to about 1,300 tries. Now, unfortunately, the Eggman models from Sonic Heroes and Shadow the Hedgehog haven't been ripped, so we'll be moving on to the Sonic Rush model. This looks really good for a Nintendo DS game. Man, if you told me this was from a DS game and I didn't know it, I don't know if I'd believe you. So his face is a little plainer, as you can see. No real texture to speak of on his eyes, mustache, or goggles. But again, for a DS game, this looks very good. They even got a little control panel in there. That being said, they did not model the lower half of him, in case you were wondering. I'll be honest, I kind of like weird, realistic Eggman from Sonic 06. He's got really detailed clothing. You can see all the like cloth stitches in his jacket here. His buttons look a little weird. Kind of reminds me of Majin Buu's head. But it was kind of fun seeing him realistic for a change. This is what they should have made Jim Carrey look like in the Sonic movie. Fun fact, this is the only Eggman model with eyeballs. If you ever wanted to see Eggman without his glasses? Sorry, I jumped the gun a little. This is Sonic Riders Eggman, released a little before Sonic 06 in February of that year. Pretty goofy looking, although I do like this little motorcycle outfit they gave him. I don't think any of the protagonists in that game wore helmets, so good on Dr. Eggman for playing it safe. But his hands are way too big, his feet are way too big. Same issues as all the Sonic Riders models. 2,200 tries. That Sonic 06 model had 24,000 tries, Jesus. Sonic Rush Adventure Eggman, pretty similar to his model from the first Sonic Rush game. He's just got a little bit more detail in his face this time around, plus a big old smile. This model's from the DS version of Mario and Sonic at the Olympic Games, released in 2007. The first time we actually get to see his full body in a Nintendo DS game. Again, this model looks really good for a Nintendo DS game. As far as his clothing and stuff goes, it's even better than the Sonic Rush and Sonic Rush Adventure models, I would say. I think since they didn't have to model this big Eggmobile thing, they were able to put a little more detail into his clothing. This art style, I feel like we're getting close to peak Eggman, though his hands seem a little big here. They're like twice the size of his head. Sonic Riders Zero Gravity, released in 2008. They did not tone it down at all on his hands. He's still got massive hands. His clothing has a little more detail. I don't know if I like this pattern in his jacket here. His facial hair looks good, and his gloves look really good. And I really like those goggles. Those are super clean. Sega Superstars Tennis, also released in 2008. This one was for the Nintendo DS. This is the worst Eggman model. I hate it. Look at how pale his skin is. He's got little blush marks on his cheeks. His glasses and goggles are just baked into his head. They're not actually modeled. Easily the worst Eggman model we've looked at here. Did I speak too soon? This is from Sonic Chronicles, yet another game released in 2008. I feel like this looks a little better than the other Sonic character models from Sonic Chronicles. I think mainly because you can't see his eyes, but his body has such a weird shape to it. He's got knock knees. Why does he have knock knees? The ends of his feet are rounded. It looks like he's just wearing big floppy stockings. His mustache looks dumb. It just looks like he's wearing a big bandana on his face or something. The textures are super muddy, but at least they got his skin color right. And he does have a pretty menacing expression on his face. Sonic and Sega All-Stars Racing, released 2 years later in 2010. This is it, folks. We have almost peaked. This model looks so good. With just over 11,000 tries, that is way fewer polygons than the Sonic 06 model, and yet it looks so much better. It's nice and rounded. All the textures look good. You can see some wrinkles in his clothing there. His gloves look good. The only thing that I'm surprised by with this model is the mustache is still just a flat 2D plane. You would think in 2010, for a high-definition PC game, the mustache would have had a proper 3D model. Here are classic and modern Eggman from Sonic Generations, released in 2011. This classic Robotnik was such a good reveal when Sonic Generations first came out. No one was expecting to actually see him in the game. I can see why they waited so long to bring him back. He just looks so silly. But I am glad to see him again. Nice to have you back, old buddy. And this right here, this is probably peak modern Eggman. Unfortunately, I don't have a Sonic Unleashed model to show you guys, but I think that design looked pretty similar to this one. He just looks so good in those games. Classic Robotnik is 22,000 tries, modern Eggman is over 32,000 tries, wow. Mario and Sonic at the London Olympic Games Eggman. A slight step down in the quality department, but still a really well-designed model. Look at him, he's so mad. Sonic Dash Eggman, nearly identical to his London Olympic Games model. His mustache is just a little darker, a little more brown. The green on his goggles pops a little more. The little notches on his zipper aren't quite as pronounced. But man, is he angry. Look at that scowl. Mario and Sonic at the Sochi 2014 Olympic Games. Diminishing returns. Still an excellent looking model, but not a whole lot new going on here. His arm sticks out a bit from the sleeve now, which is sort of interesting. I don't remember seeing that before. And the green on his goggles has almost disappeared now. But he's still got a grumpy face. Now here's something different. Eggman from Sonic Boom Fire and Ice, released in 2016. This is the Nintendo DS version. I wasn't the biggest fan of the Sonic Boom redesigns, but I do think that Eggman maybe got off the best out of all of them. I like how they flipped the idea of an egg-shaped body on its head by literally just flipping the body upside down, making him wide on top and not as wide on the bottom anymore. Kind of an interesting idea, but I'm glad we're done with the Sonic Boom era. I think this clothes flap looks kind of silly, especially in this 3DS game where it's just a flat texture on there. The mustache looks kind of gritty. From here to here, he just doesn't look super great in my opinion, but I think the boots look good, the gloves look good, and they did a really good job with his face, at least underneath the mustache. Sonic Forces Eggman, released in 2017. Again, we're back to looking pretty similar to the Sonic Generations model, though his glasses are a lot more blue now, and the green spots on his goggles are back. I'm pretty sure this Sonic Frontiers model is almost exactly the same as the Sonic Forces model. His wireframes look pretty similar. The Sonic Forces model had almost 32,000 tries. I stand corrected. The Sonic Frontiers model has over 46,000 tries. That is insane. Goes to show you how real these diminished returns are. These models look almost completely identical. The only thing I notice right off the bat is the wrinkle in his sleeve looks a little different. And lastly, we have Sonic Dream Team Eggman, released in 2023. Again, nearly identical to the last few models. So there you have it, almost every single Eggman. We really did peak around Sonic Unleashed. I wish I had that model to show you guys, but since I don't, I'm just gonna go ahead and say his latest model from Sonic Dream Team is the best one. It looks really, really good. Just over 20,000 tries, I think that's all it needs. But those are just my thoughts. What's your favorite Eggman? I'll admit I do have a soft spot for these ones from Sonic Adventure 2 and Sonic 06, but let me know what your favorite is in the comments. If you like this video and want to see my ones on Sonic and Tails, feel free to take a look at those. I'll leave links in the video description below, and as always, thanks for watching.